So something called the Stable Act has been proposed, and the Stable Act, or the Stablecoin Tethering and Bank Licensing Enforcement Act, as it stands for, suggests that issuers of stablecoins be required to do a few things. One, deposit an equal amount of the underlying currency with the Federal Reserve. Two, become a licensed bank. And three, undergo regular audits, which a regular bank would. And I think on the whole, it stifles innovation and really doesn't make a lot of sense, right? We obviously deal with a dollar that has moved away from the gold standard and is backed by nothing but an implicit promise. And granted, stablecoins aren't legal tender, but to suggest that they somehow need to be licensed in the area of a banking institution is perhaps overkill. What I think is interesting about it, or I think points that you could take away from it, are a licensing. Right now, the current regulation, if you're going to offer some sort of redemption function, where as a stablecoin, and you notice this with Tether, if a stablecoin is going to be redeemable for the underlying currency, you would at a minimum have to be registered as a money service business with FinCEN, and at a maximum also licensed within each state or the 49 jurisdictions that have money transmitter licenses as a money transmitter or money service operator, as they're called in some states. So there is actual legislation that already governs stablecoins to an extent. I like the audit piece to a degree, because as we've seen with Tether, there's been multiple attempts to audit the underlying reserves, and they make bold claims that they have adequate underlying reserves, but they failed 3 audits. And having worked with auditors and audits in the context of publicly traded companies and in the context of regulated entities, auditors don't quit, right? They quit when they can't do their job. And so to the extent that an auditor quits, that's probably a telltale sign that something is amiss. And I'm not suggesting that something is, but there probably is. So, I look at it and I think the Stable Act maybe has something. Now, what I would like to see, if it were up to me, which is of course not, is some degree of separation between money service business, money transmission, and banking operations, right? To obtain a bank charter would sort of negate the purpose, and it'd be too extreme for most stablecoins to even bother to form. But I think there's a middle ground as a custodian or as a licensed trust or some hybrid that is yet to be developed that stablecoin should actually be, because there needs to be some redundancy. And I think the purpose of the Stablecoin Act, at least as it's stated by its promoters, is to protect lower income individuals from unscrupulous promoters. And let's be honest, there's plenty of unscrupulous promoters in the crypto space. So that's a fair and reasonable reason to have the Stable Act. But I think you have to balance the sort of the inequities, or the equities as it were, with stifling innovation and consumer protection, and who's actually going to avail themselves of stablecoins. And I think most stablecoins do a good job of pegging themselves to the dollar, but as far as the redeemability function, since it does require licensing, you don't see stablecoins actually taking that next step, so it's not really redeemable. Much like a dollar isn't redeemable for anything either, right? So it's an interesting attempt, and I think it's misguided, but not totally misguided. I think there's parts of it that you do have to take, but it's not law, right? It has a long way to go. And so, how that would retroactively apply to existing stablecoins is always questionable, as any law would retroactively apply. There'd have to be some sort of grandfathered in sort of acquiescence to existing stablecoin operations, or at least some time period for compliance. But it's an interesting thing, and I feel a lot of questions about it, so I felt the need to give you my 2 cents for whatever that's worth. So the Stable Act, mostly bad, somewhat good, but if you have questions on how it could affect you going forward, or if you are issuing a stablecoin, what your current regulatory requirements and obligations are, feel free to hit me up, Adam at adamtracy.io, and I'll talk to you soon.